It's okay, it takes time. I know.
Welcome back to Strong, everybody. I'm so excited to bring another amazing guest. This week we meet Arsalan, who's based in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. For those of you watching for the first time, Strong is a platform that brings global communities together. The aim is to be sharing real life stories about real life role models so that our youth can begin to understand how life experiences can shape us. Resilience is not something that we learn in a classroom. It's something that we learn through every experience of our life. For those of you coming back again and again, thank you so much for watching Strong and staying with us on this journey. Welcome, Arsalan. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
What I'd like to do is take you back to a time when you were just beginning to understand who you were, probably around the age of 14 or 15. You'll probably remember that as a time of, who am I? What do I want to be doing? Family, friends probably asking you what you're going to do when you grow up, and those big life decisions kind of looming around you. Do you remember that time, Arsalan?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Who can forget these times?
And it's great for us right now because we can look back and we can have a giggle and we can think about, oh my goodness, those moments. And we almost look back and they're fond memories. But in working with the youth, what I see so much is at this age, and as they start to get closer to going off to university and beginning that young adult journey, they really feel like the decisions that they have to make, their identity, understanding where they fit in the world, is a big life decision. And it almost feels so big that they're too afraid of making any choices. What was that time like for you?
Oh, man. I mean, in those days, in those days, I was playing, growing up, all I knew was playing squash. Like literally, I went to school, I played squash, I saw my girlfriend in these days, and that was it. Like I wasn't one of those people that partied too much or did the normal thing that normal high schoolers do. And I literally thought that was I was gonna do for the rest of my life was play squash, because I was playing at a semi-professional level at that point. And then one day my dad kind of turned that tap off. Like basically he was like, you're not going to play squash anymore. You're going to go to school and continue your education, go to university. And I remember those days. It was so hard. It was so hard to, as you're saying, squash was my identity. Like if you ask anybody who was Arsalan, they'll tell you he's a squash player. He was the UAE champion, the Asian champion, whatever. Like that was all I did. And it was such a big time in my life because I had to make these decisions very quickly that I didn't even know I had to make. And that absolutely required a lot of adaptation, a lot of growing up, a lot of things that hit me really hard very quickly. There's a lot of personality changes and stuff like that. It was a crazy time thinking about it now.
What were some of the stereotypes that you felt you had to face at that time, being a sports person, identifying yourself as, a sports person?
Oh, in those days, we didn't have the facilities we have now. We're talking about the early to mid 90s. In those days, playing a sport like squash that nobody even knew was tough, because I think I don't think this is in any way dissimilar to what I hear from the youth today. You're stigmatized. I couldn't go out and smoke and drink and do all these things that my friends were doing in the raps. I didn't want to be honest. It's not that I wasn't allowed to or whatever. Yes, I mean, no one was allowed to, but I didn't really want to. And that kind of like put a kind of mark on me from my peers, from my friends, that I was this loser that didn't want to go out and didn't want to party. And I also struggled, like even with my girlfriend I was dating at that time, a lot of stuff happened because of that, because I wasn't one of the I was always one of the I was the kind of person that hung out with everybody. I was cool with the cool kids, I was cool with the nerds, I was cool with the athletes, I was cool with everybody. But I wasn't considered one of the cool kids, you know, because I didn't really do the things that they were doing. So yeah, it stigmatized me in a way.
What would you say was a cool kid back in that time?
A cool kid was somebody that uh, was athletic, a little bit of a rebel, dated many chicks, you know, broke hearts, didn't really go to school, didn't really do well in school. I don't think this ever changes. You know, I hope it changes. I hope, I don't want to be limiting like that, but that's still what I hear today, you know,
Can
and I
you
definitely wasn't like that.
can you remember what the hardest challenge you had, other than your dad telling you you're not going to be an athlete, you are going to go that traditional route, you're going to university? Other than that being a challenge, which for young people that can be one of the greatest challenges they have, what would you say aside from that would have been one of your greatest challenges back in that time?
I was teased a lot because of my because of the way I looked, because I was really skinny, and I was really skinny, and I was much darker than all my friends. So I got teased a lot for that. And although I told you I was never, it was never really bullying, because nobody could bully me. I was still a pretty strong kid, and you know, I had my ways, but still, you know, these things, I think teenagers and kids at that age don't really understand how much these little words hurt. And I think that it's not getting any better from what I see. You know, now we didn't even have social media and all that stuff. Like, I can't even imagine. But for me, it was always this um, uh, this constant um, um, judgment of myself, of how I looked, or how I behaved, or that I wasn't cool enough to have multiple girlfriends, or you know, all that stuff, and I wasn't getting that kind of attention. I think it took me a while to actually realize that that was affecting me, because you kind of put that wall up and you try to not show it to people, especially as a guy. You know, you try not be vulnerable, you try not to show it to people, you try not to not to cry, you know, because they tell you boys don't cry, and be a man and all of these things, and you try to show your guy friends that you don't care about that, and you laugh it off and stuff like that. But it was brutal, man. It affected me until like very lately in my adult life. It's not, I had to deal with these things. I had to kind of reprogram my mind and look at it from a different perspective to really get over it.
How do you feel that you've done that?
I think there was a lot of work, a lot of reconditioning internally. I did a lot of reprogramming of my unconscious mind through all the methodologies that I do and all the courses that I took. I learned how to love myself infinitely. And I did a lot of work on that. A lot of work on that. I wish my wish now, and where I practice from, is I just wish people are just nicer and understand where that comes from, and how to help their kids, and how to help themselves, and parents and teenagers to understand where it comes from to start with, because it comes from somewhere. This abuse to other people, or making yourself feel better on the account of other people. You know, that's a very big part of what I do now.
I love that you brought up, I learned how to love myself. I know that when I talk to women, when I interview women, and the topic of self-love comes up, you know, the idea of really going within and self-reflecting and being okay with our vulnerability is a common element of the conversation. What's it like for a man to find self-love? What does that look like? Well, you know, how would you describe that experience, of course, through your eyes?
I realized recently, in the past maybe 2 or 3 years, that in general there is no, whether for men or women, and I'll come back to me and to men, but in general there is no outward love. You cannot give love in the sense of the pure meaning and the pure God-given kind of love that we um, have inherited as a right of ours, and you cannot give it unless you learn how to receive it, and you cannot receive it unless you truly do love yourself, because at the end of the day everything is a reflection of yourself, right? And the reflection of what's happening internally. So when you're saying go inwards, when you're going inwards, you're really kind of projecting what you have inside outwards, and unless you clean what is inside, you're never going to be able to see the world or give the world what it deserves. So I think for me, getting married and having my daughter 2 years ago and things like that have completely made me rethink how I define love to start with, and I think that was the biggest kind of change. And from a man's perspective, I think that the fact that men are not vulnerable is not the status quo of a man or of a boy. They're conditioned to think that way. We don't come out this way. You know, we all come out the same. We all come out as creatures of love and creatures of joy. And we're kind of conditioned to not think this way. We're taught by our environment, by our teachers, our, you know, whoever is in your life, that in these early years that kind of form that idea that men cannot be vulnerable and men cannot cry and men cannot feel these things. And in those early ages, when people tell you these things, it kind of forms your personality as a man, and you don't want to be seen like that. So unlearning that is, I think, for me, absolutely crucially important for every man, every young man, the sooner you do it, the better. Honestly, even if you're a teenager, even if you're 10, the sooner you do it, the better, because it's going to completely dynamically change your life and how you see life.
I think you're on the mark with that. And do you feel that it's the norm now for men to sit down and, you know, over a drink, over a coffee, and talk about their vulnerabilities? Is that happening when you're around your male friends? Is that a common thing?
I mean, I'm a wizard. I get these things out of people, but in general, I would say there are a lot of men coming sort of out of the woodworks and talking about these things. Like, I'm amazed. There are Instagram pages and social media pages that are dedicated to this kind of thing, and some of them have like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, kind of men, kind of signing up and learning how to be vulnerable, learning how to open up. It's definitely changing. Definitely, I wouldn't say it's enough yet, but there's definitely a movement forward. With my friends, I mean, look, when I'm a total believer that when you kind of raise your vibration, when you raise your energy and you change and work on yourself and work on what's happening inwards and inside of you, and project that outwards, and just try to be a better person and try to love yourself even more, the right people kind of fall in your life, and the wrong people kind of fall out because they don't vibrate at the same kind of energy level. And so the people and the men that are in my life, whether the old friends that stayed with me, or the new men in my life, that my friends, my guy friends, my boys, they're all on the same level. All of them are on the same level. All of them want to grow. All of them want to learn. All of them are open. All of them are vulnerable when they need to be, and they're strong when they need to be. It's not like it's always vulnerability. This, vulnerability is strength, but also sometimes you need to be strong as a man. Like you need to kind of switch off and be the mountain, like I say to my clients. Sometimes you need to, and I understand that. That's why we're men. But it's good to sometimes just kind of let go and kind of be love and chill out a little bit on that stuff.
I love that. I want to narrow in on something we heard you say a few times when we talked about remembering those younger years. You said that you really learned how to self-love and you really learned how to do that. And then you talked about the experience of having your 2-year-old daughter, and that really taught you what love was. What does love mean for you?
I think love for me means to accept people unconditionally, right? I don't want to say love people unconditionally, but accept people unconditionally, because if you accept people unconditionally, it automatically means that you accept yourself unconditionally, right? And for me, that was absolutely the starting point of where I could actually love myself unconditionally, because I had to take a big stare at myself in the mirror and accept myself for all my faults and all my what's the opposite of faults? All my good things, I guess, right? And that also allows you to see yourself from a very objective perspective. And that objectivity allows you to kind of start working on the stuff that you would like to work on without judgment and without harshness.
That's probably one of the hardest things to do in practice, would you not say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is hard, and yet it really isn't. Yeah.
In the work that I do with young people, they're often trying to find the missing piece. Like, maybe if I learn this, I'll be able to do whatever it is that I set my mind out to do. And I'm always trying to show them that it's not one moment in time that you're gonna get it. It's kind of like life in practice. And that's why I really feel that these experiences of our lives and how we're sharing the stories of what we've gone through teach young people the process. And you get to a stage where, there's an emotional challenge in your life, and you just keep moving forward through that storm, being able to stay resilient. And I think that, it's not something that you can put your finger on. It's almost like a perfume in the room. You get it and you kind of keep moving. Would you say that that's what it's like for you right now, today, and in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are certain things that it's very, very unfortunate that we don't teach kids, and we don't teach young adults and everybody. I wish, the reason why I'm saying this is I wish these things are taught to kids from the beginning. What are emotions? I live in a world where there is no good and bad. There's absolutely no good and bad. There is positive and negative, but there is no good and bad. Everything is good, right? I call it cause and effect. It's called empowerment. There's this word is thrown around so much, the word empowerment, but nobody really defines it, right? It's a big glitzy kind of word that everybody throws around these days. Empowerment is literally you living life thinking that life is working for you. Everything is working for you. The bad and the good, if you want to label it that. The positive and the negative, In my life, for example, I've had so many really negative things happen to me. But from my perspective right now, as a 42-year-old, when I look back and I look at these things, those were my biggest teachers. This is the reason why I'm here. It's the reason why I met my wife. It's the reason why I stayed in the UAE and I started multiple businesses. It's the reason why I did all of things. And then before I used to think, what if I did that? My life would be completely different. No, No, it's not like that. It doesn't work like that. You are where you are for a reason. And these feelings and emotions that you have about this situation you're in is just telling you to either stick with it or move away from it. That's all it is. Emotions are like a compass. That's all they are.
Arsalan, from where I'm standing and looking in at you as an entity, I see a father, a career-driven professional, successful, empowered, strong, confident, able to be transparent and genuine and vulnerable. What do you see?
I see joy. I see joy and freedom, and it's something that I've been after my whole life, and I'm so grateful I have this in my life right now. Like it doesn't matter. All of these things you said are beautiful. They're amazing. But they don't define me really at all. I could be sitting on a beach, spearfishing, living in a tent, and I'll be experiencing joy, like literally, if I didn't have anything. And I think that's the secret to life. The secret to living a happy life is, I'm not saying don't want these things. I'm not saying be a monk somewhere in the mountain meditating all day. I love little things. I have like a few motorbikes. I have nice cars. I have a nice house. I have a nice office you can see. I love these nice things, but they don't define me and they don't bring me joy. They're not the source of my joy. They're little nice perks and additions, But for me, I am just the embodiment of the basic neutral state of what all human beings should be: joy and love. I can't say it in any other way.
When nobody's watching, what's it like to be you?
Oh man, I'm like a little kid. Yeah, I'm like a little child, watching or no watching. I am who I am, like whether the cameras are on or not. To be honest, I live my truth. I am not different. All these masks are off. I told you when we first met, like I don't even prepare for these interviews and speeches, and even when I go speak in front of like whatever 10,000 people, it's me. They get who I am on stage. They get who I am when I'm on social media. They get who I am, and I wish for everybody to be at this level, well, or at this place in their lives where they don't need to wear masks anymore.
I think that's a superpower on its own, feeling that kind of freedom where you can just be you. And I think that's the ultimate level of self-acceptance, when you are able to just say, this is who I am. And I wake up every day with the intention of just giving my best and being my best. Arsalan, you talked about having a balance between self-fulfillment and being of service. What does that really mean for you?
I think that there has to be a balance in everybody's life in terms of what they receive and what they give, right? It's a yin and yang kind of thing. It's the balance of the universe. That's how we are. If you take too much and fulfill yourself too much and don't give back, there's always going to be an imbalance, and this imbalance is not going to affect anybody but yourself. I believe that's the formula of where joy exists. It's also based on this kind of like self-love first and then loving outwards second, because if there isn't this cycle going back and forth, your energy kind of gets stuck somewhere, and that's where people have diseases and imbalances, because they're not kind of filling their cup in a way. You're either filling it and it's overpouring, and that's a problem, or you're emptying it and not filling it up again, and that's also a problem. There needs to be this cycle of emptying and kind of filling up. I use this cup metaphor a lot. It's stuck in my head.
What do you believe your purpose is? Why are you here?
I am here to first of all experience life in God's eyes, and also from a functionality perspective, to share what I know with as many people as I can, because what I know isn't very common knowledge, and I would love to share this information and all this learning that I've had with as many, and spread the word, really. Yeah.
How do you want to be remembered, Arsalan?
I want to be remembered as this guy that lived life to the fullest and helped as many people as he can, and was just really enjoying his life.
Arsalan, there's a young man watching this, I'm sure. There's a young teenage boy watching this. He's probably feeling different at school. He's probably feeling that nobody really gets him, nobody understands him. Or there might be a parent watching this and not really being able to relate to their teenage son. What top 3 tips can you offer them to get through these challenging times?
I mean, being different and being judged for being different has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the people that are judging you. Because if you were listening to what I was saying, there is no right or wrong. Right or wrong is a concept that we have been conditioned to believe. Whether you're a parent or a child and you're listening to this, there is no right or wrong. There is the common concept of what is evil and what is not and whatever. Yeah, we understand these 10 commandments, whatever, everybody understands that if you're practicing theft or you're gluttonous or you're, I don't know what, these concepts, you just can't find a better way. But to be judged for being different says nothing except about the person that's judging you. And the second thing is, I'll tell you from my perspective right now, whether in my illustrious government career or my illustrious corporate career, or even when I was an athlete, or now as a coach, coaching some of the coolest people I know, we're all different, are all different. These are the people that stand out. These are the people that create amazing things because they see the world differently. They don't fit into a mold that makes you think and feel a certain way. They're usually very creative people. They usually have solutions. So I would say, as a parent, encourage it. And as somebody that's feeling like they're different, celebrate it, like literally, and understand that if somebody's bothering you about it, it's a phase that's going to pass, right? And eventually, I can guarantee you that you're going to end up on top. Everybody I know that was different in school right now is doing amazing things. Everybody.
So the age group of 15 to mid-20s, a little earlier, early 20s, is the highest age group of mental health issues and suicide around the world. The numbers are climbing. How do you encourage a young person that might really feel like, Arsalan, this time is not going to pass. This is just too hard. How do you reach out to them? What do you tell them?
Look, I would never say that I understand what it's like to be there, right? But I was diagnosed almost, if I allowed it to, with depression, chronic depression, and multiple things. And I know if I was a kid in those days where now they oversubscribe pills and stuff like that, they probably would have stuck me with some pills and to make me feel better. I know I felt pretty down under at some point in my life, multiple points in my life. And the thing is that these emotions are the only thing they're doing is they're showing you that your mind does not like how you're thinking right now. And if you arm yourself with that knowledge, you will understand that emotions are just a kind of indication of where you are right now. And it's kind of like a little sign that's telling you, I use this example. So if you have a cup and it's filled with hot water and you put your finger in it, the first thing you'll do is you'll react and you'll say, ouch, and that's a feeling of pain. Depression anxiety, all of these feelings are exactly the same thing. It's just your body telling you, I really don't like, it's telling you, ouch, I really don't like how you're thinking. I really don't like how the environment you're in. I really don't like all these things. And it's just a matter of understanding that, and allowing yourself to, allowing your body to show you that sign, and understand that there's just something in your environment that you need to change. You know, the only issue with that is that with a lot of teenagers, they feel like they're trapped in the situation that they can't get out of, you know, but you can get out of anything. All you need to do is just speak up
And it's a
and
hard
act.
it's a hard journey for young people, because they don't have the life experience. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They don't have the experience. I mean, let's face it, it's hard enough as an adult. Going through dark days is hard enough as an adult. And we have journeys of success, milestones along the way. So for a young person that doesn't have those milestones, has been bullied through high school, really feels different. We see this a lot with third generation children who, you know, they're expatriate children. This, who am I? Where do I live? Where am I from? Where do I fit in? It's a hard time, Arsalan. And I think in sharing these real stories with them, it's important that we also let them understand what darkness felt like for us too, because I really feel that as parents, and I was guilty of this with my eldest daughter as well, is we try to protect them. We try to make them think that, you know, everything's going to be okay. We're here. We're going to protect you. No one's going to hurt you. But there comes a time when they're alone with themselves. And we have to hope as parents, as adults, as a community, that we've given them enough fuel to take them through that darkness. You said that, you know, you also struggled with moments in your life where it got really hard. Go back to that time and talk to us about really what it felt like for you to go through that, because we have to share these stories.
I'll give you the context, and I'll tell you what it was like. So when I graduated from university, I came back, and you know, I just finished. I was looking forward to starting my career and all of that. My dad lost his job, and my older brother lost his job, and I'm the youngest. And all of a sudden, my dad is a very non-emotional kind of man, you know, typical Middle Eastern, no vulnerability whatsoever, like very closed. And he was like, listen, son, it's all on you now. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you're going to have to support the whole family financially. And that kind of like, I'm like, you don't have any savings? He's like, no. I'm like, you don't have a house anywhere? No. We're living on rent. We're living check to check, basically. And it's on you now. And I remember the feeling when he said that to me, because it just felt like the whole world kind of sat on my shoulders. And I just was struggling to kind of find what I wanted to do versus just make a quick buck really quickly to kind of support the family, my brother, my mom, my dad, and they were kind of used to a certain level of life. So I started taking on loans and credit cards and stuff. And all of a sudden I was like a 23, 24-year-old with all this debt. And it just kept like, felt like I was sinking and sinking and sinking and sinking. And then one day I lost that job. And I climbed really quickly up the ladder and the place in the government where I was working, and I was making really good money within like 6 or 7 years. But then I lost the job abruptly. They fired me. And it just was, this moment in my life was absolutely horrendous. I had to pay 2 rents, had all this debt. And I remember so many times where I just couldn't see a way out at all. It was, I developed, whatever you want to name it, but I developed this really debilitating back problem that made it even worse. And I couldn't get out of bed, or I couldn't get out of the couch. And it was just pain all the time. And um, the thing was that I just kind of, out of necessity and out of survival, I kept trying and trying to get a job and trying to get a job. And then all of a sudden I got this job, and this job was a million times better than the job I had before, but I got it 2 years later. So for 2 years, I was just doing random stuff, like hustling, like they say, you know? And then I got this amazing job, and everything went away. The depression went away. The back pain went away. I don't even remember, like literally, I promise you, I went through 100 MRIs. They MRI'd my brain. They MRI'd my back. They did anything you can imagine just to understand where this pain is coming from. Constant pain, right? I got this new job, everything went away, you know? And that moment was a huge lesson for me, huge lesson for me, because I started understanding that these emotions can be reversed, and these emotions are extremely dangerous for you. And that was kind of the beginning of the journey of what I'm doing now. Like all of these, that particular situation, why your health deteriorates when you're doing this, where are these feelings coming from, why do people get depressed, why do people have anxiety, and how to kind of counteract it very quickly.
What kept you going in those 2 years?
Survival, really survival. I mean, to me, it was a matter of putting food on my parents' table, you know, that overwhelming responsibility, you know? And I think in a way, everybody has a responsibility. It depends on the depth of your spirituality, the depth of how you view life, the depth of your relationship with your family, the depth on your relationship with yourself, with your friends. You will always find a purpose. You can always find a purpose to continue living, to continue finding solutions, to continue something. You have to find the purpose in your life. This is not just when you're down. Yes, it will help you when you're down and under. This is even when you're up.
It's been an amazing conversation to have with you. Thank you for taking us on this journey of your life, from being a young teenager to sharing that story about that experience you had and taking on a responsibility. I think I would describe that as the reality of what can happen. And we're seeing a lot of this right now through the pandemic is family members losing their jobs and family members having to support each other through these not only financial times, but also emotional times. And this brings us to the end of another amazing episode. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you all again next week when we bring another amazing guest to Strong.
It's okay